Hello everyone, and welcome to the second lesson of the day. We're going to be talking about dimensional analysis, which I know might seem a bit of a strange word, but really what dimensional analysis is just changing units of values so we can better understand them. For this, you will likely want to take a look at the back of your book. There is a table of measures, and this shows us how to compare different units, both the metric system and the imperial system. Um, you don't need to memorize this, guys, all right? If we ever do have a test or a quiz, you will be given this information. So don't worry about that. I mean, stuff like even knowing how many feet are in a mile are things that you would think we would know on a regular basis, but you don't really, people usually don't memorize how many feet are in a mile. In fact, I bet if you pause your video right now and go to your parents and ask them how many feet are in a mile, they will not be able to answer because no one really remembers or even attempts to remember how many feet are in a mile, even though we use miles all the time. Anyways, what we're going to do now is dimensional analysis. We're just going to be converting with units. So let's do something very simple first. For the first example, let's convert 720 inches into feet. There's two steps to these kind of problems in general. Use the table of measures to set up the problem with the appropriate ratios and then solve for the answer. We know, right, that there are 12 inches in 1 feet. We don't need to go look at our table of measures, but it's always there just in case. So we start with 720 inches. And now we're going to multiply it by the ratio that represents this because 12 inches is 1 foot. Now, some people might think that, oh, if it's 12 inches for 1 foot, I should make a fraction where the 12 inches are on top and 1 foot is on the bottom. But think of it this way, guys. We're starting with 720 inches. Inches is effectively by itself. It's on the top. We actually want to flip this over because we're trying to have these inches cancel out. So now that we have this whole set up, all we have to do is cross off the units. So these inches are going to cancel. And that leaves us with this, 720 times 1 foot over 12. So that's going to be 720 times 1 foot over 12. 720 times 1 is 720. And then we can simplify this more. Remember, a fraction is just the same thing as division. So if you take your calculator and do 720 divided by 12, you'll get 60. So the answer is 720 inches is equal to 60 feet. You're probably wondering, oh, that's not, or you're probably thinking, that's not too bad. That wasn't a hard problem. How can it get worse? Here, let me show you. For example 2. Here's a bit more of a complicated situation where we're talking about a cycling event for charity. Amanda traveled 105 kilometers in 4.2 hours, and Brenda traveled at a rate of 0.2 miles per minute. Which girl traveled at a greater rate, or which girl traveled faster on average? Here's the thing. One's going kilometers in hours, and the other one's going miles per minute. Can't really compare those that easily, right? Kilometers versus miles, hours versus minute. So our goal for us to compare those answers is for one of them to have the exact same units. So let's take a look at this. Step 0. This is a new step from the previous one because of a word problem. We have to gather the relevant information. We first remember the most important part of a question is, well, part of a word problem is what is the question. The question is which girl traveled at a greater rate? Who's faster? So looking at this, I see Amanda traveled 105 kilometers in 4.2 hours, and Brenda traveled at a rate of 0.2 miles per minute. Let's try to represent that, okay? So I know Amanda traveled 105 kilometers in 4.2 hours. It's a nice fraction right there. Meanwhile, Brenda traveled 0.2 miles per minute. Now here's the thing, guys. Miles per minute means 0.2 miles per 1 minute, or as a fraction, 0.2 miles over 1 minute. So we have these two fractions. They don't have the same units. I can't tell who's going faster. But what if I converted Amanda's kilometers hours into miles per minute? That's where we go back to what we were talking about just a minute ago, guys, when we were using the table of measures. In fact, if you look at the table of measures right here, keep this in mind. We're going to need to use that. We're talking about kilometers versus miles, right? So why don't I just remember that? 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers. So that's how to get from kilometers to miles. And then for hours to minutes, we know that there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, right? So now that we have this converted, we're going to use these relationships to convert Amanda to Brenda's time. Or speed, sorry. So let's start with Amanda, 105 kilometers for 4.2 hours. I know that there's going to be 1 mile for every 1.609 kilometers. Now take a look at this, guys. Notice how I put the miles on top and the kilometers on bottom? Remember when we were crossing off the units? That's because we had a unit on the top and a unit on the bottom that matched up. You could put 1.609 kilometers on the top, but then it would really mess everything up. So that's why we're trying to keep things separate. So that will deal with our kilometers and turn them into miles. How can we turn our hours into minutes? Well, let's go ahead and put our 60 minutes on the top for 1 hour. Take a look at this setup. There's something wrong. Go ahead, pause the video if you want to think about it for a moment. Hopefully you realized that, hey, aren't I trying to turn these hours into minutes? But notice how hours are on the same side. They're both on the bottom. For us to get rid of the hours, there needs to be one on the bottom and one on the top. Because we already have 4.2 hours on the bottom, let's take this 1 hour and let's flip this around. So now it's 1 hour over 60 minutes. Now you notice there's 3 fractions instead of 2. But once we have things set up, guys, it's just going to be a lot of crossing off. And in fact, believe it or not, this is one of my favorite parts of math because watch this. I'm going to take this right here and then I'm going to slowly cross things off. Kilometers can be crossed off with kilometers. These hours cross off with hours. Now take a look at this, guys. We have miles per minute. Isn't that what we want at the end, miles per minute? Now we just multiply everything. 105 times 1 times 1 on the top, and 4.2 times 1.609 times 60 on the bottom. Multiply the top together, multiply the bottom together. So we got 105 miles on the top and 405.468 minutes on the bottom. Guys, it's a messy number. Please use a calculator for this. You do not need to do this by hand. Come on, save yourself some time. So finally, I could do 105 divided by this big number, and I'll get around 0.26 miles per minute. So take a look at this. This is how fast Amanda's going, and this is how fast Brenda's going. Remember, our goal is to figure out who goes faster. Isn't Amanda going a little bit faster? So our winner is Amanda. Amanda is faster. So that's all we're going to be doing for the rest of this day. You'll be doing the previous work about converting, with proportions and ratios. And for this lesson, you'll be doing stuff with converting with units using dimensional analysis. Make sure you turn in that work, guys, and you are ready for our next class. You have a great day. Bye.